In this video, we'll show you how to use gateways in EspoCRM Flowcharts. We are able to present this feature thanks to the courtesy of EspoCRM. Flowcharts are part of the Advanced Pack extension, which can be purchased on the official website. Flowcharts allow you to create automations without needing to develop custom code, a powerful feature for any business. Gateways help you handle records based on your specific needs. For example, you can direct the process flow in a certain direction, depending on the status of a record. To create a new flowchart, go to the Administration section and find Flowcharts at the bottom of the list. Click the Create Flowchart button, enter a name, and choose the entity the flowchart will be created for. It's that simple. We'll add the most basic trigger block to manually trigger the flowchart. Let's start with the exclusive gateway. The exclusive gateway is a decision point in the process, allowing the flow to either split or join. It looks at conditions and selects one path to follow based on them. Only the first condition that matches will be executed, while the others will be ignored. Add a block to the flow and create the actions to be triggered afterward. We'll also add an end block. Now, let's connect all the blocks together and name each one appropriately. For demonstration purposes, we'll notify the admin user for all notifications, though in a real scenario, one action could notify the admin while the other notifies the user. Next, we need to set conditions for the exclusive gateway. Each section with conditions lists the block it's linked to. You can use AND or OR conditions. AND means all conditions must be met, while OR requires only one condition to be true. You can even use both conditions at the same time, or incorporate a formula as a condition. Now, for testing, we'll set the correct account type and trigger the flowchart. As you can see, the flow went through the Notify User action based on the account type. Now, let's select an account with the type Partner and trigger the flowchart again. This time, the flow went through the Notify Admin action as the account type is set to Partner. Below the flowchart, you'll find the history of processed flowcharts. To sum up, the exclusive gateway helps control the flow direction by making decisions without merging paths. Next, let's switch to the inclusive gateway. This type of gateway allows the flow to split or join, sending the process down one or more paths simultaneously, depending on conditions. If no conditions are met, a default path is taken. You'll need at least two outgoing paths to define the splitting rules. We'll add an alternative path by linking the gateway to the end block. Then we'll set up conditions for the inclusive gateway. We could configure a default path, but we'll use normal conditions instead. In this example, if the account type is set to customer, both actions, one notifying the admin and the other creating a new call, will be triggered simultaneously. If the account type isn't customer, the flow will end. Now, let's test it. As you can see, both actions were triggered because the account type is set to customer. We received a notification about the new customer and a call was created. Now, let's test the second scenario. As you can see, the flow ended automatically because the account type is set to partner. In summary, the inclusive gateway can split the process into multiple paths and then bring them back together, but all paths need to be handled carefully to avoid any bottlenecks in the process. Next is the simplest gateway, the parallel gateway. It controls the flow by splitting or joining paths without conditions. All paths start simultaneously, and the process waits for all of them to finish before moving forward. However, if any path gets stuck, the entire process will stop, so design carefully. We'll replace the inclusive gateway with a parallel gateway, link it to all actions, and test it. As expected, all actions were triggered simultaneously. To summarize, The parallel gateway starts multiple tasks at once and waits for all of them to complete before proceeding. The last gateway is the event-based gateway. This gateway pauses the process and waits for an event before deciding the next step. Once an event happens, it chooses that path and ignores the others. We'll test this with the call entity. First, add a conditional trigger and set the conditions to run the flow. Then add the gateway and blocks to capture events. One block will be triggered when the target record changes, while the other will trigger if no changes happen within a set time, similar to a timeout block. Imagine you have a user who is supposed to call a new customer within 24 hours. If they make the call and change the status, the flow will recognize this. If no call is made, the second block will trigger after the time limit. Each situation will trigger a different action. After linking the blocks, we'll name them properly. We'll configure the timer to trigger an action that marks the call as not held and notifies the admin. For testing purposes, we'll set the timer to 1 minute instead of a day or week. Now, let's configure the conditions for when the call is marked as held and notify the admin about the call. Let's test the flow. When I change the status of the call, the flow proceeds along the correct path. Now, let's test the timeout. As you can see, after 1 minute, the call was marked as not held, and a notification was sent. In summary, the event-based gateway waits for an event to occur before determining which direction the process should go. Only one path is followed based on the first event. Okay, now you know how to use gateways in EspoCRM Flowcharts. We've covered how exclusive, inclusive, parallel, and event-based gateways work to control process flow. These gateways can help you manage tasks, make decisions, and automate actions based on conditions and events. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below if you have any ideas for our next video.